Get the fuck up! All of you, on your fucking feet! What the fuck are you doing still sleeping? Why aren't you in your rooms? The screaming woke me up. My neck hurt from sleeping in the chair, and I was still jet-lagged. I'd been dreaming of being trapped in a large dark space, with something breathing heavily behind me, no matter which way I turned. I was glad I was woken, but the big-mouthed fucker yelling was going to get a beatdown. While all of that was shambling through my exhausted mind, I'd already leapt to my feet and to attention. My blurry vision settled on a man in BDUs, with the gold bar of a lieutenant on his lapel. He was pissed, kicking chairs and rousing everyone. I'd fallen asleep in my uniform, still coated in coal dust, and my boots, dusty from the dirt floor and gritty from the coal dust. My eyes were gritty, and I was bone-deep tired. This is the goddamn US Army, not a fucking daycare. Now get up! He managed to yell and bully us into a formation, 4 wide and 4 deep. Glaring, he stood in front of us at parade rest. You guys are the sorriest looking fuckers I've ever seen. Who's the ranking NCO? We all looked around. I am, sir. A guy with gray hair said, stepping forward. Oh god, all he had on his collar was corporal. Everyone around me was specialists, PFCs, and me. Who's the officer in charge of this clusterfuck of morons? He asked. You are, sir, the corporal said. I repressed a grin at his expression. You, Private Monkey, go wake everyone else up. I want a formation outside in 20 minutes. I noticed his uniform was pressed and starched, and his boots reflected his uniform. Sir, this is everyone else, the corporal said, grabbing my arm before I could take a step. This is the entire unit. We sleep in here for warmth. The lieutenant looked like he was about to explode. He turned and stomped off, and we all looked at each other. Everyone introduced themselves to me. Out of everyone there, I was the only person who hadn't been sent here from another unit, who hadn't been busted at least once, and hadn't served at least 2 years in the military. The only explanation we could figure out for me being sent here was the fact that I had been transported to basic training in handcuffs. We all separated and returned to our rooms to get changed and dressed. I took a shower. The water was hot and warm, and the soap washed away the lingering feelings from the night before. I took about my iron and ironed my uniform on the desk, putting a damp towel between the desktop and my uniform so that it came out looking good. A quick bit of extra work, and my extra pair of boots were shined and ready. I shaved quickly and headed back down to the day room. Everyone was standing there in uniform, and the LT looked pissed. He was turning away from the bank of about a dozen phones on the CQ barrier. Why do these clocks have different times? He sneered. The first is local time, the second is Zulu, the third is synced with the Pentagon, and the last is synced with NORAD, sir. A woman answered. She was E3, and had a leg brace on. I noticed her titties filled her BDU blouse. Who ordered that bullshit? The LT snarled. Sir, that was in the orders packet that we opened upon arriving here. The female, Stokes, answered. What operations packet? He screamed. Great. This ass monkey thought screaming meant good leadership. Carter, grab the op orders. A guy, man, yelled. The CQ came into the room, holding a thick manila envelope. Why wasn't I handed this already? The LT asked. I could tell this guy was going to be a problem. You didn't check in last night, LT, and had not asked for it this morning, Carter answered. The LT tore the envelope out of Carter's hand and walked out, pulling a ring of keys from his pocket. Shit, this guy's gonna be a problem, man grumbled. He pulled a pack of Camels out of his pocket and lit one. I went and bought a soda. I was down to less than $5 in my wallet, and I doubted that the vending machines would honor traveler's checks. I came back to everyone trying to figure out what kind of asshole this LT was going to be. The door blew open, cold air rolling all over us. Standing in the doorway was a guy wearing Mickey Mouse boots, Arctic firing mittens, a cold weather mask, a cold weather cap, a pair of cold weather trousers, and a parka with a full lined hood pulled over his head. He had a box sealed with a pair of metal bands in his hands. He set the box on the table and pulled off his mask. 5th Corps sent these. This is the 219th Special Weapons, right? He asked. Who's fucking asking? The PFC behind the desk snarled. The guy laughed. Good answer. Good OPSEC. Want to sign for these? Mason, go find the LT, the PFC yelled. A guy with no rank on his collar, but the darker squares of Suon rank on his bare collar showing he had once been higher ranking, nodded and went into the stairwell. Damn, you guys are out in the middle of fucking nowhere, the guy bitched. He bummed a smoke-off man. The goddamn main post doesn't even know where the fuck you guys are, and all the maps say is restricted area for this area. Goddamn Cold War bullshit. I'd become very familiar with that phrase over the years. Why wasn't I notified? You were on your way, soldier, the LT yelled, as it came out of the stairwell. The guy's face went from easygoing bitching to hard as the goddamn ice that coated the windows. Well, why wasn't I notified? And you better answer. I'm an officer. I've never forgotten that phrase. The guy turned around and pulled back the hood of the parka. On its cap sat a single gold oak leaf. So am I. And I don't answer to you, Lieutenant. He looked positively pissed, and the LT went white. Sign for this shit, so I can get off this goddamn rock and back to some semblance of civilization. The LT stammered their apologies and fawningly signed the clipboard. The Major kicked the box across the floor and left through the 2 sets of double doors. It was then that the arrangement made sense. 2 sets of double doors acted as an airlock, keeping out the worst of the cold. It was also snowing outside. Don't just stand there! Someone carry this down to my office! The LT screamed at us. I shrugged, grabbed the box, and hefted it. It was pretty heavy, but I've always been stronger than my size made one believe. I followed the LT downstairs, and for some reason, I was suddenly afraid that the room beyond the stairwell door would be bare dirt. I breathed a sigh of relief when the light bulb lit tile and cinder block came into view. There was one door on my left, mailboxes on my right, a counter with a gap in it, and a chain-shut door, that the window was stark white. So were the full-flown windows to the right. That meant that the snow was over the doorway. Holy fuck. We went past a door behind the mailboxes, into 3 doors. One recently painted, one SG, the other painted XO, and the one the lieutenant led me through was CO. Inside, the lights were on, and the desk was piled with what I assumed to be the contents of the manila envelope. Set it there, Private. Then go stand at parade rest, over there, in case I need you, he said, going over and sitting behind the desk. I let my mind drift as I stood there, while he first popped the banding off, and then began going through the stacks of paper. I saw him pull out maps, typewritten orders, and more packets. He was grunting at various things, but I tuned him out. My legs started to hurt, and my knees were aching. The lieutenant left and came back with a sandwich. Fucker didn't offer me shit. I just stood there until he finally looked up. Go get everyone else. Tell them to form up out front of the building. Out front? In the snow? Was he fucking high? I snapped to attention, pulled a left face, and got the fuck out of there. Everyone was sitting in the day room, smoking cigarettes and drinking soda. Stokes had opened up her leg brace and was rubbing her knee and sighing. Lieutenant Greer wants us to form up outside, I said. Oh, you have got to be fucking kidding. Another private, Cobb, snarled. I turned around and looked outside. It was bare white, and you couldn't even see the steps at the porch. That's what he said, I answered. He said to form up in the lot across the street. Grumbling, we went to our rooms and put on our cold weather gear. When I returned to the CQ area, everyone else but Stokes was already there. Private Cobb had a coil of 550 cord in his hand. Alright, well I'll take a cut of that one, he said, pointing at the other end of the 550 cord. Tie it to your parka belt, then loop it over this one. I checked. You can't see farther than a foot or two out there. Stokes will hold the barracks end. I'll be on the far end. As soon as the LT comes out there, we should be able to go in. I just nodded dumbly. These guys and girls all knew better than me. I followed instructions and was the 5th out the door. Cobb hadn't been kidding. I damn near fell down the steps. and couldn't see my hand if I stretched it out in front of my face. It was only 1600, and it was nearly dark, with the wind howling around us. I must have died on the bus, and now I'm in hell. I felt the person behind me grab onto my back, and I reached back and grabbed his hand. We'd hold 4 people to a line, and hopefully get 4 lines. I bumped into the guy in front of me, and I stepped up next to him, my shoulder against his, closer than any formation I'd ever been in. 10 minutes! The guy next to me yelled. Okay, I yelled back, then turned to my right. 10 minutes! Roger! The other guy yelled back. He was still holding my hand tightly. I reached out and grabbed the guy on my left's hand, and he squeezed. It was freezing fucking cold, and the wind was prying through the holes in the cold weather mask, and my ears and the tip of my nose were starting to hurt. 5 minutes! Was yelled to me, and I yelled it down the line. Where the fuck was Lieutenant? What kind of madman was he to send us out in this shit? If we weren't tied together, we'd be spread all over and lost in the whiteout. Fuck. If we weren't holding hands, we'd be all alone in the whiteness. Fuck this! Everyone, back in! The guy on my left yelled. I passed it up, and I soon felt a guy on my right pulling me forward. I stumbled on the steps, and we went inside. We were covered in snow, and we all had ice on cold weather masks. Where's the lieutenant? Cobb asked. Right here! Why aren't you fuckers in formation? Are you afraid of some snow? Came screaming from the stairwell. Sir, look outside! For the love of God, that's a blizzard, said another guy. I couldn't see his name. Did your recruiter promise you that you only had to work in the summer? Get your asses outside, damn it, he yelled. And what the fuck is this rope shit? Blizzard security measures to make sure nobody gets lost, Cobb said. That's an old wives' tale. You losers better be outside in 5 minutes. If I have to come out and get you, there will be hell to pay, the lieutenant screamed, throwing open the doors and pushing his way outside. Cobb lit a cigarette and offered me one. I took it, even though I didn't smoke, and looked around. Oh, tell me he didn't just go outside without a tether, Stokes said, shaking her head. Aren't we going in formation? I asked, looking around. Everyone was taking off their cold weather gear and rolling it up so they could sit on the floor on it. Don't worry, Private Monkey. After about a half hour, people began wandering off, talking and chatting. Stokes was holding hands with Cobb, and they walked down the hallway together. I walked over to Man. What happens now, Man? I asked, pointing at the door. Don't we try to rescue him? In a November blizzard? At night? Look, Private Monkey. He went out there in a field jacket and winter BDUs. No protective gear, Man told me. He's already dead, isn't he? I asked. Yup, Man said, moving around behind the desk. You've got CQ tonight. Tomorrow morning, we'll call 5th Corps and let them know they lost an officer. I stared at the doorway. I later found out that none of the snow stayed on the ground. The winds whipped it around, and later dumped it further down a mountain. We were too high up for too much to stay. We found the officer that summer,